Director for 20 years, the founder and director of the Vitra Museum. You know that the IAAC now has participated in this exhibition called I, Robot at the Vitra Museum, so he was the founder of that museum. But before that, he did many other things. Today we had a very interesting conversation, and he's one of the persons that was working at some moment of his life with Rai Inns. That is the wife of Charles Inns, that is the designer of the best furniture that you can find at the IAAC. We have two kinds of furniture, the good ones. For example, that one that you are sitting on some black chairs and other Chinese stuff. This is, I don't look at it, never. But when the IAAC was founded, we only bought Vitra furniture, that's the truth. And then we had the early pictures is full of this Vitra furniture. So he was not only founder of the museum, but he even was working before with the Inns environment. And we invite him, among other things, because after to run the Vitra Museum, he was the founder of one place called Boisbuchet. And Boisbuchet is one of these mythical places that we like to learn. Boisbuchet is located in the middle of France, like in the middle of nowhere, in some place called Limoges. They have an incredible castle. I hope that you will show some pictures of it. But when we were developing and thinking of how to imagine the future of Valldaura, we were looking around places in the world where the students could go there, people could go there, could do research, etc. So we were inspired. I think that we both were inspired by Taliesin, that you know, that was founded by Frank Wright near Phoenix. But in Europe, I think that the most, one place that inspired very much was Boisbuchet, because they invite designers, they do workshops, they do incredible things that I hope that he will be able to explain us. So he, in fact, he is a collector and a cultural entrepreneur, and he's also a main self-made, that he was building his own biography, and his biography is rich because he did several things in his life, but also every step was even more interesting than the others. He created Boisbuchet, that is an independent place. Today we were in Valldaura, we were looking around, and we hope that in the near future we can work together and learn from each other. So please say welcome with me to Alexander. Thank you.
Good evening. I am very happy about this invitation because I had been today with Matthias in Valldaura, and it reminds us so much of Boisbuchet. Immediately we felt like being at home, but it is much more wild and exciting, because there's so many things to do in the future which are very challenging and inspiring. So I think it's exactly the place with and the people we should work in the future. I would like to explain my understanding of design by telling the story of what I did in the past, and it is adventures generally with objects. Oh, sorry. So I hope you understood the first part of it, but let us start. Okay, it's about the beginning, and then collection, Vitra Design Museum, and Domaine de Boisbuchet. Yes, that's what you see. I said I was fascinated of objects from the very first beginning, and to explore objects I went to flea markets. and that was in the early 60s, end of 50s, in various different places. Amsterdam was very close to the German city of Düsseldorf, where I grew up in the first part. This is later on when I was in Hamburg. It's me in the suitcase, so I was very relaxed in working with objects and finding objects on flea markets. This is in Paris, Marché aux Puces, which is one in the 60s, 70s. It was really a treasure for finding historical objects, but also contemporary objects like Bouvet, Eames, and so on. This is El Rastro in Madrid. I had been very often there, and it was very similar, but I found beautiful objects also from Latin America on the Rastro. That's in Marrakesh. It's one of the most famous Arabic markets where you find, again, objects from all the different cultures, and of course mainly from the North African one. Egypt, I lived 1 year in Egypt, and again, the market was a central point of my interest. In Egypt, I found this first object. I was, I think, 14. It is a coffee pot. And I was, why is someone in this age interested? I just was fascinated from this oversize, without knowing about Klaus Oldenburg and anyone else, but I just was fascinated to have such a huge pot, and they told me it's for 120 cups of coffee, and it was from the Turkish army, which occupied North Africa for 300 years. So I bought this and went back to Europe. This in Hamburg was a place I lived in an old factory with a community in the 60s, and we did theater, we did concerts, films, and also a discotheque, which was financing our life at that time. And of course, in this age, you examine a lot of different things, also in theater, which led sometimes to closing, the police was closing down the factory because they thought it's quite illegal. At the time, this was the first project for city planning. I think, I can't see the date, I think it's in the 72. It was for the city of Hamburg. The cultural person in charge of the city asked me to develop a project to revitalize the center of Hamburg, so with palm trees and a tent and markets, of course, places to meet. Then I went to Andalusia. I worked with Álvaro Domecq because in the summer I went very often to Andalusia, riding on horseback through all the villages and mountains. And there was a story in the magazine about these excursions, and Domecq asked me whether I can build up a small tourist company, what I did for 1 year. Afterwards, I went to France, and in France I started to work with bentwood. Bentwood started already in Hamburg in the factory because we needed for the theater chairs, and again on flea markets I found the most cheap, the affordable cheap bentwood pieces, and was very much interested in the technology of bending wood and using it for industrial process. So when I was in Andalusia, I found a lot of the very early bentwood pieces which had been purchased in 1851 when the World Fair happened in London, because in Spain, in these posadas, where I found those chairs, they used it to carry them out in the morning and bring them back in the evening. It's very light, it's very solid, and I bought them and I took them into pieces on the saddle back to our station. And then in France, later on, I started to restore pieces and did the first exhibition at the Centre Populaire. This is one of the image of this house in Les Landes. It's close to Biarritz on the Atlantic Ocean. Then I went again to Morocco. I did similar trips through the Anti-Atlas and the Moyen Atlas on horseback with friends or sometimes tourist groups. That was, part of it was happening on dromedaries, so it's a very changing way of occupations. Then I had the first exhibition in Hamburg with furniture, bentwood furniture. I went afterwards to America to do exhibitions with the Museum of Modern Art and department stores in different cities in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and other cities about bentwood furniture, using this example as a way to explain the evolution of industrial furniture design. Because the process of bending was really one of the conditions which allowed a very economical way of working with wood and building solid chairs, because you didn't cut the fibers, you bent the fibers, and it was a very solid system. This is Billy Wilder. You might know him. He was one of the great film directors in America. I worked with him for nearly 15 years in America, and through him I met the Eames, because he was the closest friend of Charles and Ray Eames. And I did exhibitions with him. This was my first book about tubular steel. Logically, after being interested in bentwood, I started to collect also tubular steel. It's a different process, but it also allows an industrial production in a very economical way. This was a book about Tonnet, the first one. This was an exhibition I did with the American Federation of Art about bentwood and metal furniture to explain the evolution of industrial design. It was the first major exhibition in America about industrial design, traveling to 10 great institutions in America. This was in the MAC, the Museum of Applied Art in Vienna, an exhibition, and which finally led to the purchase of the Viennese government of a part of my bentwood collection. That's in Frankenberg, the foundation of the museum of the company in Frankenberg, which was based on my collection. The opening exhibition for the Musée d'Orsay, there had been 12 different exhibitions, as all of them giving examples of the period for the Musée d'Orsay and the period the museum is covering. That was another exhibition at the German National Museum about the beginning of Tonnet, how he achieved this process. This was a poster for selling bentwood furniture in 1873, I think. This is a process in the Czech factory. I went to most of these factories in Czechoslovakia to learn more about the technical process and to do publications about this subject and exhibitions. So, as I just mentioned, from the purchase of a part of my collection to the Austrian government, I was able to acquire Boisbuchet. Boisbuchet is a domain of around about 150 hectares, situated between Limoges, Angoulême, and Poitiers in the southwest of France, and you will see later on further pictures. As Boisbuchet was occupied by squatters when I purchased it, I was obliged to do something else. Thanks to the relationship with Ray Eames, she asked me to see Rolf Fehlbaum, the owner of Vitra, and to discuss with him whether we could work together. I was invited to visit the company, and he asked me whether I would like to build up a collection. As I did it before with my own collection, but also for some other museums, with the Stedelijk, with Philadelphia, and so on, I told him I'm only interested if I can really work afterwards with such a collection. So we agreed on this level. As long as I can auto-finance the museum, I can do what I want, but it should meet the standard and the quality of Vitra. The building was chosen by, or the architect was chosen by Rolf Fehlbaum. I was not involved with the architecture, but with the concept and as an independent museum. So you see some exhibitions. This was an exhibition of my collection in the Centre Pompidou in 1993, the first major exhibition of my collection, and the Centre Pompidou purchased afterwards a part of it. Another part I donated to the museum, and they started with this exhibition to build their own design department with a collection. Now I would like to show you some of the pieces of the collection. Again, the orientation was clearly I was not interested to collect all the different modifications of different models, but I was interested in the process, the technical process, and the marketing and of course, the physical appearance. Sorry, but I can already explain. Michael Tonnet, who developed this bentwood technology, he was a simple cabinet maker close to Koblenz in Germany, and he developed this system of bending wood. But it was not only bending wood and building normal furniture and selling them, but he was not mounting those furniture only at the location of the sales. The furniture had been mounted, which allowed a minimum of transport. So he was able to deliver this furniture for the the same price or for a lower price by shipping them to America or Latin America or China than the local products in those countries. So he was not only a genius in developing the entire technology, the different models, and a system of having one principal model with all these different modifications, but also a fantastic person for the marketing of the pieces. They had been sold all over the world only by catalogs, and some examples shown in the showrooms. So he was able to put 36 chairs of this number 14, the most famous banquet chair, in 1 cubic meter. So, of course, it was an IKEA of the 19th century. That's one of the most elegant models of this banquet. But I'm also collecting other objects like these from northern part of Italy, from Africa. I'm also interested in saddles, everything which is a symbol of the nomadic aspect of our civilization. And of course the chair is the symbol of our sedentarian culture, and both are telling us a lot about each period, whether it was fashion or whether it was an economical crisis or wars or whatever. Furniture, especially chairs, like clothing, are the closest objects in our life and are documenting very well the culture and the civilization. So that's Otto Wagner, Joseph Hoffmann, Rietveld and Mackintosh, Breuer, Rietveld, Wagenfeld, glass cube. The very first Vasily chair, still with an open back on the left side. I think there are 5 models left in the world, and the other one was a later version, I think 3 or 4 years later, from Tonnet. Marcel Breuer on the left side and Corbusier on the right, and these on the whole Breuer. One of the first chaiselons on Corbusier. Today you have to say it's Corbusier Charlotte Perriand. That's the same from Corbusier Charlotte Perriand. Hans and Vasily Lucart, the chair for the Maharaja of Indore, and also the desk here. Okay, alto. And again, you see it's a plywood. It's a material which allows mass production in the most ecological and economical way, and it is very elegant. Breuer, of course, was much more nature-oriented. Alto was much more nature-related in the form giving of his objects, but he was a close friend of Breuer, who did just the contrary, very geometric and functional, logical furniture. Breuer the chaiselon and the chair, and then you have Heinz Rasch and Rietveld and Panton. This is also interesting, the way, the idea of the seat had been described by Heinz Rasch, the black one, where he is just taking the profile of sitting a person sitting and building it out of plywood and filling it with seat and back and the leg, and then Rietveld later on did it in a more abstract way, and Werner Panton could fulfill it like it was foreseen in the first place, just with one panel of material in one process to form a chair. That was a dream since 1810, 1815, and it happened in the 20th century. The first piece of Jean Prouvé, a folding chair, and the siesta chair of Tonnet. Jean Prouvé, André Bloch, and Tonnet chair from America, Rietveld and the Argentine, and Hardoy and two other colleagues also. Yeah. And Noguchi, again, a proposition of how to use plywood in a chair where you can change the angle with just 2 screws. I never used the chair, but I mean the idea is fascinating and it's beautiful. And Gerald Sommer did it with this chair using just a panel of wood, cutting it in and bending it in the shape you would need for a fauteuil. Lisitsky, it's one of the very rare chairs he did for the hygienic exhibition in Dresden. Eames, that was the first chair on the red chair upholstered he did with aerosaline. The leg splints from Eames, Chaiselon. This is Jean Prouvé and Charlotte Perriand. Today we have to say Charlotte Perriand and Sonia Delaunay and Jean Prouvé, but there have been legal procedures all the time about the rights. So again, Eames and Panton. That's an old mold, a wooden mold from the factory. I lived in Hamburg and we used it as a table. That's Ingo Maurer on the other side, that's a poster. And Marcel Breuer, Prouvé, a Japanese from Noguchi, the children nurse, and the bakelite loudspeaker from Philips, Kita, Sotsas, and Pierre Poulin, and a series of pieces, Gaetano Pesce, and Colombo, Ron Arad, André Cazenave, Joris Lahmann. I think this is a very interesting chair. He only did 11 of these chairs, and it is the way Gaudi would have liked to do experiments. If you see in the, I don't know if it's still the case, in the Casa Pedrera, upstairs under the roof, there had been a lot of the examples of studying or learning from nature. And I mean, there is a consequence from these researchers at the end of the 19th century, how to learn from nature and how to construct in the most economical and elegant way. Now, finally, with the computer, I think this is 2003 or 2005, I don't remember exactly the year, but Joris Lahmann realized a chair showing exactly the strengths you need to build a solid chair, and this was done by the computer. So then the Campana and Bertoia and Jasper Morrison and Art, Frank Gehry, of course, and Tokujin Yoshioka and Pesce. They took the, Tokujin Yoshioka, that's paper, honeycomb paper folded, and it was just a flat, like a book, and you pull it out and you sit in, and then it takes the shapes, the individual shape of your body. That was the first poster we did for the Visual Design Museum with a selection of 224 chairs we considered the most important at that time, but that's 25 or even more years ago. That had been the miniatures. As I had to auto-finance the Vitra Design Museum because Vitra was not so much interested in financing the museum. So there was a strong obligation that we find all the money ourselves. And doing miniatures, it was very helpful. Within a very short period, they financed 1/3 of our annual budget. That was a huge amount. And I decided to do this in the scale of 1 to 6, because then you still can see all the little details, but it is not too large, so you could have a kind of collection of these chairs on your desk or somewhere in the shelf. We sold nearly every year between 15 and 20,000 of them, and they had been still very expensive because it is difficult. They're all handmade in Poland. This was an exhibition of my collection at the Pinacothèque Agnelli in Turin. The Agnelli, the Fiat family. It was the architect Renzo Piano, who did in the former factory of Fiat, he built the museum for the company, and we showed this exhibition there. It gives an overview on the banquet story. Here is another picture of the installation. The exhibition was done by Matthias. The Eames part, the 60s and 70s, archaic objects from Africa, Europe, Eames, all the Japanese part of the collection. We always showed catalogs on this palette as well. All the experiments with campanas, with Frank Gehry, Ron Arad, and so on. So now from the Vitra Design Museum, to give you an idea about what the exhibitions we showed there, the Czech Cubism, I don't know if you are aware of this movement after the Cubism in art was developed in France. The Czechs use this concept for applied art, architecture, fabric, nearly all the disciplines. And we did the first major exhibition about Czech Cubism, first in Prague and then at the Vitra Design Museum, in the Centre Pompidou, in the CCA, the Canadian Centre of Architecture, Philadelphia, New York, and so on. So it was the exhibition giving us a breakthrough as a museum, and was very important. So you see some of the pieces. That's Louis Kahn exhibition. It was the last exhibition under my direction in the Vitra Design Museum. And then there are, that's still the Salk Institute. It's Louis Kahn still, Joe Colombo. So exhibition design was really important for us, and we continued later on in Boisbuchet to follow this. The Baragan in the end of the 90s, I achieved to purchase to find the Baragan archive and to purchase the archive for the Vegesack Museum. And we did exhibitions, but this is not, no exhibitions. Werner Banton. And then, of course, Charles Eames. When Ray died, I was sent to America to discuss with the family whether we can purchase all the three-dimensional objects of the Eames work, because Ray died in 1988. It was 1 year before the opening of the Vegesack Museum. So, and Charles died in 78, 10 years the day precisely before Ray. And I stayed there for quite a while to convince the family to give us the collection. So the Library of Congress inherited all the two-dimensional material, including a huge archive of photos and films, and we took over the object part. That's again Eames and Billy Wilder. The Eames house. That was part of the Eames exhibition. This is the Vitra house just in front of the Vegesack Museum by Herzog and Demmerhorn. And now we are coming finally to Boisbuchet. Here is an overview. It's round about 30, this is representing 30 hectares of the park. We have on the right side the river, La Vienne, and on the left side is a lake which we built with a wall. It was a dam here on the right side. It was a valley leading down to the river with a very small river. And there is a lot of different buildings. You will see them in the chateau. We don't have the finances to restore the entire chateau, so we are using it as it is. And this was an exhibition. Matthias is in charge of conceiving the projects for the exhibition, and then we are looking for universities which are interested in the scenography of our exhibitions and helping us to develop them and to realize them with a budget of 3,000 or 4,000 euros. I mean, a minimum, but it's surprising how much fantasy they can develop, and they find solutions with the very simple structure. This is the dépendance, where most of the students, there are places for 60 students in the dépendance. This is the entrance hall of the dépendance with Rudolf Steiner, the anthroposophic philosopher. The door is from Rudolf Steiner. He did this for the Goetheanum, and it was a donation to Boisbuchet. This is one of the former stables. It's a gallery space with campanas, with Noguchi, Hella Jongerius, the sofa, and of course from the horses, the hay racks at the wall. That's the dépendance barn with in front a very large table for making models or serving at eating table if it's raining, because generally we eat outside, and behind you have the porcherie, and we will see some more. That's the inside of the barn, a huge hall, which is used. This is a porcherie, the former pig stable, which had been now transformed into our library and archive with the French government, with the support of the government. This is a mill down at the river Vienne with terrace and the riverside terrace, which is quite beautiful. Here you see these. The Japanese house, quite an important part of the collection, is taking care of our Japanese objects. And the Keio University, we asked for finding a showcase for our collection, told us about houses, kominka houses, these traditional wooden houses, because no one wants to buy or to rent them in Japan, so generally they burn them down. And there is an organization called Kominka Research Center, and through this organization we found one of those houses which had been offered by the Shimane prefecture to Boisbuchet as a donation. And it is a beautiful original house from 1860, the same year like the chateau, but it has this gold measurement, I think. Do you say this in English? I think so. It's really a human measurement which is absolutely perfect. And you can open all the different sides, and in the summer the students are using it for presentations. We have a lot of visitors, and there are objects in shown, so it's serving very well. This is Shigeru Ban. It was the first pavilion he did in Europe. The paper tubes he used, a very cheap material, and we use it for fashion and jewelry workshops in the garden. This is the first pavilion by Simon Velez. Simon Velez is an architect from Colombia. He is specialized on bamboo, and he developed one of the most convincing and functional solution how to combine bamboo tubes, because you cannot put pressure on them if you want to connect them. But if you inject only in the parts of the you want to connect concrete, then you can screw them together, and it works very well. So he did several buildings at our site. This is Colney from the United States, one of the largest factories of glass, and today it's a high-tech research company. They built this full furnace to do glass, ceramic, and porcelain. This is a cabane from Alexander Brodsky, an architect and an artist from Russia. He was teaching in Pratt for 4 years in America, and in Russia he is very well known for wonderful installations in Moscow and in other parts of Russia. So that's just using old doors and windows from Boisbuchet to create a kind of dacha. That's Nikolai Polisky, a very known landscape architect from Russia. But you see, we just have generally for those workshops 6 days. And you can't do major projects, but you can realize ideas, you can illustrate ideas with material simple material, and that's what it's all about. We want to show students ways of developing fantasy and just illustrating it with some three-dimensional forms. This is Markus Heinsdorf. He offered a completely different solution for bamboo with a very sophisticated way of joints. And it was done for the Chinese government. He did a series of these pavilions, and this one was donated to Boisbuchet from the People's Republic of China. This is Hans-Jörg Schleich, the engineer of Frei Otto, who did all these huge constructions of the Olympic Games, for instance, for Munich. And Schleich is one of the most specialized offices for large constructions. That's the lake with the pyramid. Then those are all the designers who had been or tutors who gave courses at Boisbuchet. I think there are about 340 or something. This is the latest project or program for this year. You can find it also on the internet. This is the chateau with the group. You will see some of the activities. This was with Quadrat. You might know it's one of the best companies for fabrics, like Moharan in America, and Quadrat, both Quadrat is in Denmark. And with Seville Peach as a teacher. That was a design reflection. Oh, this is Alexander Brodsky with his team. This is Koning. Koning is coming every year with a container they developed for Boisbuchet in order to ship easily 7 different furnaces to work with glass at Boisbuchet. And this we are doing now for 12 years. It was done also in New York together with Koning, at Miami, and in front of the Louvre of the Pyramid of Iron Pay. There you see some of the outcome. This is the way in the evening we eat inside in the large barn, and that's generally outside. We also work with companies, USM Haller, Swiss company of furniture design, very simple Bauhaus appearing design you probably saw very often in ads. You find it together with the Eames furniture. They celebrated their 50th anniversary with 10 workshops at Boisbuchet. That's Go Hasegawa with a class from Tokyo. This is Hermes, all the art directors of Hermes with the owner Pierre-Alexis Dumas. They did their incentives during 1 week. That's a competition with Amorim, a large producer of cork, with Su Fujimoto. This is our new atelier. This was built with the support of the French government from the other side. So we have large terrace to work, and inside are also large spaces. This is the kitchen. The kitchen is up to 200 people. We can prepare food. That's the chateau, and I think then the textile house here, IAAC did participate on Solar Decathlon. We did a similar project with Rhode Island School of Design, Brown University and Erfurt to develop such a building, and it was shown in 2014 in Versailles on the presentation of Solar Decathlon. That's the inside. It's one of the very few projects of Solar Decathlon where the intention to use the building later on was realized from the very first moment. Rhode Island School of Design asked us whether we are interested in such a building. So we discussed for 1.5 years, and of course we took the building later on, and a lot of people are coming to see it, and we use it for visitors on our side. This is an exhibition in the Chinese pavilion. We are doing exhibitions, very specific exhibitions about subjects, and this is Boro, about a Japanese tradition of repairing clothing. And that was shown in the Mood, in the museum in Lisbon of Fashion and Design. That's a Japanese exhibition about naked shape, aluminium pieces recycled from American military equipment after the war. This was the first exhibition at the Boisbuchet, the chateau, of learning from vernacular architecture, a cooperation with the EPFR, the École Polytechnique de Lausanne. Simon Velez, an exhibition, and those are the companies who have been so far supporting Boisbuchet and working with us. That's it. If you have a question, I think it was such a run through a lot of different periods and activities. But if I can explain perhaps more about the background of why we are doing Boisbuchet and everything which is related to our educational activities, Matthias and me could easily answer those questions. I don't know the timing.
So thanks, Alex. I have another mic. Thanks, Alexander, for the wonderful presentation. I was like 3 or 4 years in Boisbuchet, and it is really an impressive place. So if any of you have time this summer or in the future, this is a fantastic place where you would spend 1 week doing one of those workshops. But I would like to ask you something. What's next? What is the future? We are always interested about the future. So could you tell us what are the vision for the development of Boisbuchet and this kind of mix of design and innovation?
We are trying to find partners either with the French government. They are getting more and more involved, but you know the economic situation in France is very difficult. But they started to help us with making things easier. But we also are looking for partners like we develop with American universities and other universities. But we would like to stick to our way of allowing experiments for students without having a precise goal from the beginning on, but just to start to dream, and then after 1 or 2 days to make it more concrete and to explain their ideas with the three-dimensional object. This had been very helpful, and I think the way that all the different cultures are living together, very concentrated during 1 week. They are not going in the evening somewhere in a disco or a cinema, or they are really concentrating and they don't want to miss anything, so they are not leaving the place, but they're staying there day and night. And to create also a network of friends is very important for most of the young designers, to find jobs, to travel without spending a lot of money. These are the things which are important, and the designer or architects giving the courses are not allowed to leave. They have to stay this 1 week from the morning to the last morning, and they are not allowed to receive clients or to use the phone during the day. So they really concentrate on the group, and you see the feedback. A lot of students are working later on for 6 months or a year in offices of the designer and architects.
If you ask about the future, we talk about the program this afternoon. We talk about the idea to build up an artists, architects, and craftspeople in residence program. So these creators would stay in Boisbuchet all year round. This is one big project we are working on. And another project is, of course, to create, last but not least, through this artist residence program, to enhance the whole idea of community living in Boisbuchet year round. So far there are Alexander, myself, and the technician who are living there all year round. But the idea is that families come there with their kids, and that becomes a place like Valdaura where generations to come will live in a self-sustainable way.
Good. So any questions from the audience? Any smart question now? Any smart question now? So no question, no smart question. So now, any question?
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
The smart
don't
one.
pressure me, please. No, I wanted to know, Alexander, you showed us a huge amount of pieces from your collection and the collection you had to build, so really a lot of inputs. But I wanted to ask you more on a personal side. What is triggering you to collect? How is that? Who are you in the sense of wanting to collect things, recognizing? You didn't explain how come you start collecting and you end up from, going around in marketplace to have one of the biggest, the biggest collection of tonneau chairs and setting up one of the biggest museums around it. So what is that is pushing you there?
But there was no concept from the beginning on. I was just very curious in objects, and not only to have them or to storage them and to show them, but to learn about the process of making these objects. And if you go to flea market, people would tell you a story because they want to sell the piece, but they also will suggest a certain use of the thing. Sometimes it's true, sometimes it's invented. You learn a lot about people in different countries and cultures if you are going to this flea market. So all this was interesting for me. But the reason I collected and kept all these objects had been I wanted to do exhibitions. So in order to not to have only text and photos, I wanted to have key elements where they are illustrating the story I wanted to tell. So for exhibition, it is really important. And the intention was to have a collection for all the different stories I wanted to tell. And so each time I started with a new exhibition, a new project, I would buy all the literature from the period and onwards and try to find all the objects to explain the story. So that's how the collection grew, and it was a big problem in the beginning for my parents. My entire education was a complete failure and very difficult for parents because I did not understand the use of the school, and I had my own projects which I wanted to realize. So I think my example is not really serving anyone, but in the case you fail with the traditional system, don't give up. There are plenty of other ways. You just have to develop fantasy and to push it through.
So that's why we founded the IAAC, because we were a little bit, this was our story, and we wanted to create a place for freedom. So Alexander and Matthias, thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, and you are invited to come and see us. We are between Limoges, Angoulême, and